My name is Vorthak, and I am what your species would call, well, your worst nightmare. Standing 12 feet tall with 4 arms that could crush a vehicle, skin like molten obsidian, and teeth designed to tear through titanium alloy, I was bred for one purpose: hunting humans. For 3 centuries I stalked your kind across 17 different star systems. My trophy wall. Oh, it was magnificent. Skulls from Earth Marines, bone fragments from Mars colonists, and my personal favorite, the entire ribcage of Admiral Harrison Beck from the Battle of Proxima 7. That man actually made me work for it. Respect. But here I am now, standing guard outside a human nursery on New Terra Station, armed with a plasma rifle and wearing what you humans hilariously call a babysitter badge. How did the galaxy's most feared apex predator end up protecting the very species he once hunted? Well, sit down and grab some of that caffeinated poison you call coffee, because this story is going to twist your tiny human brains into pretzels. It started 6 months ago on Kepler 442 billion, a dustball planet that nobody cared about. I was tracking a group of human refugees who thought they could hide in the abandoned mining tunnels. Typical human arrogance. Did they really think some rusty metal corridors would stop a Vorthak warrior? Please. I had already eliminated 12 of them when I found something unexpected. Deep in the mining complex, past all the collapsed tunnels and broken machinery, there was this massive chamber. And in the center? A human, just one, sitting cross-legged on the floor like he was having a picnic instead of facing imminent death. His name was Marcus Kane, though I didn't know that yet. Mid-30s, brown hair, completely average looking. Nothing special about him except for one tiny detail: he wasn't running. Every human I had ever encountered either ran screaming, begged for mercy, or tried to fight back with whatever pathetic weapons they could find. This one, he was just sitting there, waiting. "You're the Vorthak they call the Crimson Death, aren't you?" he said, not even bothering to look up at me. "I have to say the stories don't do you justice. You're much uglier in person." I nearly laughed. This little meat sack had the audacity to insult me. "Human," I growled, my voice echoing through the chamber like grinding stone. "Do you have any idea how many of your kind I have killed?" 7,423, he replied immediately. "Or take a few. You missed one on Titan Station last year. Poor guy spent 3 weeks hiding in a garbage compactor. Died of infection, not your claws. Technically doesn't count." My blood went cold. How could he possibly know that? I had never reported those numbers to anyone. Hell, I had never even counted them myself. Marcus finally looked up at me, and that's when I saw his eyes. They weren't filled with fear or desperation like every other human. They were calculating, like he was solving some complex equation in his head, and I was just another variable. "I know you're wondering how I know," he continued, standing up slowly. "The answer is simple. I've been studying you, Vorthak. For the past 5 years I've tracked every hunt, every kill, every method you've used. I know that you prefer to attack from the left because of an old injury to your right shoulder. I know that you always take the skull as a trophy, but only after you've removed the spine first. And I know that despite all your kills, you've never once harmed a human child." "Lies," I snarled, but even as the word left my mouth I knew he was right. There had been opportunities, plenty of them. But something about killing the young ones always felt wrong. "Not lies," Marcus said, taking a step closer. This human was either incredibly brave or completely insane. Facts, cold, hard data. Which brings me to why I'm here. You're here to die, human. Actually, no, I'm here to offer you a job. I stared at him for a long moment, my forearms twitching with the urge to end this conversation the traditional way. A job? You want to hire the creature that has spent 3 centuries exterminating your species? Exactly. Marcus reached into his jacket and pulled out a small data pad. I could have killed him in that instant, but curiosity got the better of me. "Tell me, Vorthak, what do you know about the Void Swarm?" The Void Swarm. Even mentioning that name sent ice through my veins. They were the reason my people had become hunters in the first place. Parasitic entities from dark space that consumed everything in their path. Planets, stars, entire civilizations, nothing could stop them once they arrived. "They're coming," I said quietly. In approximately 8 months, Marcus confirmed, tapping his data pad. "Our long-range sensors picked up the first wave 3 days ago. Humanity is about to face extinction, and frankly, we're not equipped to handle it. We need help. We need hunters. We need you." I laughed. Actually laughed. The sound echoed through the chamber like breaking glass. "You want me to protect the species I've been hunting? Human, your logic circuits must be severely damaged." "Are they?" Marcus asked, raising an eyebrow. "Think about it logically. The Void Swarm doesn't just kill, Vorthak. They consume. They'll strip this galaxy of everything that makes it interesting. No more humans to hunt. No more challenges. No more purpose. You'll spend eternity floating through empty space with nothing but memories of better times." He was right, and we both knew it. The Void Swarm didn't just destroy civilizations, they erased them completely. No traces, no ruins, no stories to tell. They left behind nothing but empty space and silence. "Even if I agreed," I said, my voice softer now, "what makes you think other humans would accept my help?" "I am, as you so eloquently put it, their worst nightmare." Marcus smiled, and for the first time since I'd found him, he looked genuinely amused. "Oh, they won't. At least not at first. But that's where things get interesting. You see, I'm not just any human, Vorthak. I'm the director of Humanity's Defense Council. And I have what you might call executive authority. Executive authority. The power to make decisions that would affect the entire human species. This single, unremarkable human male could essentially command billions of his kind. The irony was delicious. "You're offering to make me a guardian of the species I've spent my life hunting." "I'm offering to make you a king among the species you've spent your life hunting," Marcus corrected. "Supreme Commander of Humanity's Defense Forces. Every human military unit, every space fleet, every defensive installation would answer to you. You'd have unlimited resources, unlimited authority, and unlimited opportunities to prove that even the most feared predator in the galaxy can choose to become something more." It was tempting. No, it was more than tempting. It was the kind of offer that comes once in a lifetime. But there was one problem. "Why?" I asked. "Why would you trust me with this? I could turn on your species the moment the Void Swarm is defeated." Marcus walked closer, close enough that I could smell his fear despite his calm demeanor. Humans always smelled of fear around me. But this one, his fear was different. Not the panic-stricken terror of prey, but the controlled concern of someone making a calculated risk. Because he said, looking up into my 4 eyes, "I've spent 5 years studying not just your methods, but your patterns, your psychology, and I know something about you that you might not even know about yourself." "Which is?" "You're bored, Vorthak. Terminally, existentially bored. Hunting humans used to be a challenge, but we've become predictable. We run, we hide, we fight back in the same patterns over and over again. You're going through the motions now. Taking trophies out of habit rather than satisfaction. The thrill is gone." He was right again, damn him. When had killing humans become so routine? "The Void Swarm represents the ultimate challenge," Marcus continued. "It's an enemy that makes humans look like children playing with toy weapons. An enemy that has never been defeated. An enemy that could give you the kind of hunt you've been craving your entire life." I stood there for several minutes, processing everything he had said. In the distance I could hear the sounds of the remaining human refugees trying to escape through the tunnels. Standard procedure would be to finish this conversation quickly and resume the hunt. But something about this situation felt different. "If I agree to this," I said finally, "there will be conditions." "Name them." "First, I choose my own methods. No human military protocols or regulations. I fight the way I know how to fight. Agreed. Second, any human who questions my authority or refuses to follow my orders gets fed to the nearest airlock. Marcus hesitated for just a moment. Within reason, agreed. And third, I paused, surprised by what I was about to say. Any human children found in combat zones are immediately evacuated to safety. No exceptions. Marcus smiled again, and this time it reached his eyes. I had a feeling you'd say that, agreed. We stood there in silence for a moment, predator and prey turned allies by the threat of something far worse than either of us. It should have felt wrong. It should have felt like a betrayal of everything I was bred to be. Instead, it felt like the first honest decision I had made in decades. So, I said, extending one of my massive clawed hands toward him, when do I start? Marcus reached out and shook my hand, his tiny human fingers barely wrapping around one of my talons. Right now, we have a lot of work to do and not much time to do it. That handshake changed everything. Within hours, I was aboard a human transport ship heading for New Terra Station. Within days, I was standing in front of the Human Defense Council, watching as Marcus announced that their new Supreme Commander was a 12-foot-tall alien killing machine who had spent the last 3 centuries hunting their kind for sport. The reaction was, well, let's just say it was loud. Several council members actually fainted. One elderly woman had what appeared to be a heart attack, and at least 3 military officers reached for weapons before remembering that I was now technically their boss. "This is insane," shouted General Patricia Morrison, a grey-haired woman with more combat decorations than some small armies. "You want us to trust our entire species to a monster?" "Not a monster," Marcus replied calmly. "It's a predator. There's a difference. Monsters kill for pleasure. Predators kill for purpose. And right now we need someone whose purpose aligns with our survival. But he's killed thousands of humans." Another council member protested. 7,423, I corrected, my voice rumbling through the chamber's speaker system. Several humans jumped at the sound. And yes, I killed them all. But I also studied them. I learned their weaknesses, their tactics, their psychology, knowledge that will be invaluable when the Void Swarm arrives. The debate went on for hours. Some humans argued for exile, others for imprisonment, and a few brave souls actually suggested execution. Through it all, Marcus remained calm, presenting data, statistics, and strategic analyses that gradually wore down the opposition. By the end of the session, the vote was closer than anyone expected, 47 in favor, 38 against, with 15 abstentions. I was officially the Supreme Commander of humanity's defense forces. My first act, ordering the immediate evacuation of all non-essential personnel from the outer colonies. My second, requisitioning every available ship for conversion into defensive platforms. My third, setting up a nursery guard rotation to ensure no human children would be endangered during the coming war. That last one raised some eyebrows, but I didn't care. If I was going to protect this species, I was going to do it properly. The irony wasn't lost on me. The creature who had once collected human skulls was now responsible for keeping human heads attached to human bodies. The hunter had become the guardian, and honestly, it felt more natural than I expected. But that was just the beginning. The real test was yet to come, and I had a feeling that protecting humans from the Void Swarm was going to be far more challenging than hunting them had ever been. After all, humans are predictable. The Void Swarm, well, they're something else entirely. 6 weeks later, I was beginning to understand why humans had survived as long as they did. They might be physically weak, but they possessed something my species never had, the ability to adapt at an almost supernatural speed. Take Lieutenant Commander Sarah Mitchell, for instance. When I first met her, she couldn't even look at me without her hands shaking. Now she was standing 3 feet away, arguing with me about defensive formations while occasionally poking my armored chest with her finger to emphasize her points. The transformation was remarkable. "The plasma cannon arrays won't work if you position them like that," she insisted, pointing at the holographic display floating between us. "The firing angles are all wrong. You'll create blind spots that the swarm can exploit. I examined her calculations and grudgingly admitted she was right. Adjust the positioning by 15 degrees. And Mitchell? Yes, Commander? Next time you poke me with that finger, I'm keeping it. She grinned. Understood, sir. I'll use a stick next time. This was the strangest part of my new existence. Humans who had initially cowered in terror were now making jokes at my expense. They had nicknamed me Big Ugly behind my back, which I found oddly endearing. Some even brought me coffee, despite the fact that caffeine had absolutely no effect on my physiology. It was the gesture that mattered. But not everyone had adapted so well. "Commander," came a voice from behind me. I turned to see Captain Rex Murphy, one of the holdouts who still believed putting me in charge was humanity's biggest mistake. His face was flushed red, and his jaw was clenched tight enough to crack teeth. "We need to talk." "Speak," I rumbled. Murphy glanced around the command center, noting the dozen other humans working at various stations. Privately, I followed him to a smaller briefing room, my footsteps echoing ominously in the narrow corridor. Once the door sealed behind us, Murphy spun around with barely contained fury. "This has gone too far," he snarled. "You're treating our entire species like your personal pet project. These defensive modifications, the evacuation orders, the complete restructuring of our military hierarchy, who gave you the right? Marcus Kane did. The Defense Council did. Your own government did." I crossed my forearms and stared down at him. "Is there a point to this tantrum, Captain?" "The point is that you're still a killer. You can dress it up in fancy titles and noble purposes, but underneath all that, you're still the same monster who murdered my brother on Kepler Station." Now we were getting to the real issue. "Your brother was a colonial marine. Tough fighter. Made me work for that kill." Murphy's face went white, then red, then something approaching purple. "You bastard. You talk about him like he was some kind of game." "He was," I replied matter-of-factly. "That's what hunting is, Captain. A game with permanent consequences. Your brother played well, but I played better. No shame in that." For a moment I thought Murphy might actually try to attack me. His hand moved toward his sidearm, and his muscles tensed like a coiled spring. But then something in his expression changed. The rage didn't disappear, but it crystallized into something harder and more focused. "You know what the worst part is?" he said quietly. "The worst part is that you're probably our only hope of survival. And I hate that almost as much as I hate you." Before I could respond, the room's emergency klaxons began blaring. Red warning lights bathed everything in an ominous glow, and Marcus Kane's voice echoed through the station's communication system. "All personnel to battle stations. Long-range sensors have detected multiple void swarm signatures approaching the outer perimeter. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Murphy and I looked at each other for a split second, our personal conflict suddenly irrelevant. Then we were both running toward the command center, predator and prey united by the arrival of something far worse than either of us. The main display showed what we were facing, and even I felt a chill run down my spine. The void swarm didn't travel in ships the way other species did. They were the ships. Massive organic constructs that looked like someone had crossed a jellyfish with a nightmare, each one the size of a small moon. Their translucent bodies pulsed with dark energy, and I could see smaller organisms moving inside them like antibodies in an infected bloodstream. "How many?" I asked, though I was already counting. 17 confirmed signatures, reported Lieutenant Torres from the sensor station. Estimated arrival time, 4 hours, 37 minutes. 17. I had faced long odds before, but this was something else entirely. Each one of those creatures could probably devour a planet by itself. Together, they represented enough firepower to sterilize half the galaxy. "Marcus," I called out, and the director of the Defense Council appeared on one of the secondary screens. "I see them," he said grimly. "Bigger than our worst-case scenarios predicted." Orders, Commander? This came from General Morrison, the same woman who had called me a monster 6 weeks ago. Now she was looking to me for salvation. The irony was not lost on either of us. I stared at the display for several seconds, my mind racing through possibilities. Standard military doctrine would call for a fighting retreat, pulling back to more defensible positions while inflicting maximum casualties on the enemy. But the Void Swarm didn't follow standard rules. They consumed everything in their path, leaving nothing behind. There would be no second chances, no fallback positions, no tactical withdrawals. "We make our stand here," I announced. Full defensive deployment. Every ship, every weapon, every last bullet we have. "Sir," Lieutenant Mitchell spoke up hesitantly, "shouldn't we at least evacuate the civilian population too?" "To where?" I interrupted. "These things move faster than our best ships. There's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. We fight here, or we die here. Those are our only options." The command center fell silent except for the background hum of electronics and the distant vibration of the station's engines. Every human in the room was staring at me, waiting for inspiration, for confidence, for some sign that their alien commander had a plan that didn't involve everyone dying horribly. Truth was, I didn't, but I had something else. "You want to know why I agreed to protect your species?" I said, my voice carrying to every corner of the room. It wasn't because Marcus offered me power or authority. It wasn't because I was bored with hunting you. It was because in 3 centuries of killing humans, I learned something remarkable about your kind. I paused, making eye contact with as many of them as possible. You never give up. Even when you're outgunned, outnumbered and facing certain death, you keep fighting. You adapt, you improvise. You find ways to survive that shouldn't be possible. I've seen human civilians hold off trained killers with nothing but improvised weapons and sheer stubborn refusal to die. I've watched your soldiers fight to their last breath to protect people they've never met. Captain Murphy was listening intently now, his earlier anger replaced by something that might have been hope. The Void Swarm has consumed thousands of species across dozens of galaxies. But they've never faced anything like humanity. They're expecting another easy meal, another helpless civilization to devour without resistance. Instead, they're going to find the most stubborn, resourceful, and downright irritating species in the known universe. A few chuckles echoed through the room. Good. Humor was another uniquely human trait that had always fascinated me. "So here's what we're going to do," I continued. "We're going to show these parasites what happens when they threaten our home." And yes, I said because like it or not, this is my home now too. The next 4 hours passed in a blur of activity. Weapons were charged, shields were raised, and every available fighter was launched to form a defensive perimeter around the station. I found myself moving from position to position, offering tactical advice and trying to project more confidence than I actually felt. The strangest moment came when I was inspecting the nursery's evacuation protocol. A small human child, maybe 5 years old, wandered up to me while her mother was distracted. "Are you the scary monster?" she asked with the kind of direct honesty that only children possess. "Yes," I replied. "I am. Are you going to protect us from the other scary monsters?" I knelt down to her level, which still left me towering over her tiny form. "Yes, I am." She nodded solemnly, then reached out and patted one of my clawed hands. "Thank you, Mr. Monster." Before I could respond, her mother swept her away with profuse apologies. But the child's words stayed with me. "Mr. Monster." From the mouth of a human child, it didn't sound like an insult. It sounded almost affectionate. When the Void Swarm finally arrived, they came in silence. No dramatic music, no threatening broadcasts, no demands for surrender. They simply materialized at the edge of sensor range and began moving toward us with the inexorable patience of a natural disaster. "All ships, this is command," I announced over the fleet communications channel. "Today we make history. Today we show the galaxy that humanity bows to no one. Today we prove that even the most feared predators can become something greater when they choose to protect instead of destroy. The first wave hit us like a tsunami of living darkness. The void swarm creatures extended tendrils of pure energy that lashed out across impossible distances, tearing through our outer defensive grid like tissue paper. 3 cruisers were vaporized in the first 30 seconds, their crews lost before they could even scream. But the humans didn't break. They adapted. "Focus fire on the junction points," shouted Commander Williams from the battlecruiser Defiance. "The tendrils are weakest where they connect to the main body." "Confirmed hits on target 7, reported the destroyer Mongoose. "It's bleeding, whatever that stuff is. All fighters, pattern Delta 7, ordered Squadron Leader Park. Use the debris field for cover and hit them from below." I watched from the command center as humanity's finest military minds adapted to an enemy they had never seen before, finding weaknesses in creatures that had been considered invincible. It was beautiful and terrible and absolutely magnificent, but it wasn't enough. For every void swarm creature we damaged, 2 more seemed to take its place. Our ships were being systematically destroyed, our defenses were crumbling, and our ammunition was running low. Within an hour, half of our fleet was gone. Commander Marcus Kane's voice crackled over the communication system. "We need options." "What do you recommend?" I stared at the tactical display, watching red icons disappear one by one as our forces were overwhelmed. There was one option left, but it was insane even by human standards. "Ramming speed," I announced. The command center fell silent. "Sir?" Lieutenant Mitchell asked tentatively. "All remaining ships, full power to engines. We're going to ram these things." "Commander," General Morrison's voice was tight with barely controlled panic, "that's suicide. Pure and simple." "No," I replied, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. "That's evolution. The void swarm consumes civilizations by overwhelming them with superior firepower. But what happens when the prey decides to become the predator?" I opened a channel to all ships. "All vessels, this is your Supreme Commander. I know what I'm asking of you. I know the cost. But I also know that every single one of you joined the military to protect something precious. Your families, your homes, your future. Today, that's exactly what you're doing." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Every remaining ship in the fleet acknowledged the order and began accelerating toward the void swarm creatures. Frigates, destroyers, cruisers, even the massive dreadnought Indomitable. All of them racing toward certain death with the same grim determination I had once seen in human soldiers making their last stand. But as they closed the distance, something unexpected happened. The void swarm creatures began to retreat. "Sir," Lieutenant Torres called out from her station, "the enemy formations are breaking up. They're running." It took me a moment to understand what was happening. The void swarm had encountered thousands of species over millions of years. They had devoured civilizations that begged for mercy, that tried to negotiate, that fought defensively from prepared positions. But they had never encountered a species that responded to overwhelming odds by charging straight at them with suicidal determination. They didn't know how to process it. Their alien psychology, evolved over eons of easy conquests, couldn't comprehend prey that refused to act like prey. "All ships maintain pursuit," I ordered. "Don't let them regroup." What followed was less a battle than a rout. The void swarm creatures, their confidence shattered by humanity's impossible response, fled in complete disarray. Some tried to make fighting retreats, others simply vanished into deep space. Within 2 hours, the most feared enemy in galactic history had been driven off by a species they had expected to consume without effort. In the aftermath, as we counted our losses and celebrated our victory, Captain Murphy approached me in the command center. His face was streaked with soot and exhaustion, but his eyes held something I had never seen there before: respect. "My brother would have been proud," he said quietly. "He would have charged with the rest of them," I agreed. Murphy nodded and extended his hand. "Thank you, Commander, for protecting us." for believing in us, for becoming something more than what you were born to be. I shook his hand, marveling at how far we had all come. 6 months ago, I was the galaxy's most feared predator. Now I was standing in a human command center, surrounded by people who trusted me with their lives, protecting a species I had once hunted for sport. Later that night, I found myself back in the nursery, watching over the sleeping children. The same little girl who had called me Mr. Monster was curled up in a small bed, clutching a stuffed animal that looked suspiciously like a miniature version of me. Marcus Kane found me there an hour later, standing guard in the darkened room. "Any regrets?" he asked softly. I thought about it for a moment. 3 centuries of hunting, of collecting trophies, of being the apex predator in a galaxy full of prey. All of it abandoned for the chance to protect instead of destroy. "None," I said finally. "This is who I was meant to be." Outside the nursery windows, the stars shone peacefully in the void, no longer hiding the approach of ancient terrors. Humanity had faced its greatest test and emerged victorious, not through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through the simple refusal to surrender. And I, Vorthak the Crimson Death, once the hunter of humans, had found my true purpose as their guardian. The predator had chosen his king, and in return the king had chosen to make his predator into something greater than either of them could have become alone. The galaxy would never be the same. But then again, neither would I. And I was perfectly fine with that.